Oh boy, this is probably going to be a very controversial video. You might have heard of a theory called the male gaze theory. It was invented by someone called Laura Mulvey, and theorizes pretty much that the entirety of cinema is viewed through the hegemonic eyes of a male audience, and therefore will be pleasing towards the male eye. Now, I think this is a very binary argument to have that often, most of the time, ignores the actual plot of the film and actual character development. Numerous quote-unquote examples of this happening that people always use to bring up this issue. 9 times out of 10, this character isn't wearing their costume to be sexualized in terms of the male gaze. They're wearing that just because it's the most logical situation. So today, in this very controversial video, I will go through a few of these commonly quoted examples and discuss whether they do fall under Laura Mulvey's sexualized male gaze, or the one I think is the more likely serves a particular purpose. Let me just preface this by saying all the examples I use, all the games, films, etc., I talk about in discussion of the topic. The entertainment in question will always have more depth and content than just the one narrow example I talk about. Return of the Jedi, Princess Leia. I love when people complain about this one, because it shows they are literally ignoring the plot of the film. Everyone on the planet knows the plot of this film. She's been forced into this costume, so yes, outrage is the correct reaction. Congratulations. Metal Gear Solid 5. Quiet. Think of what a sniper's job is. Okay, now think of how much easier their job would be if they didn't have to breathe. An action that alters your aim every time it happens. Quiet, therefore, is the ideal sniper. She breathes through her skin instead of her mouth or nose, so she doesn't throw off her aim every time she has to shoot something. The costume is then a necessity of this change. There is literally a scene where she gets put in actual clothes and almost suffocates. You might think they worked backwards to just find justification for the costume, but I'm pretty sure Hideo Kojima is smart enough to follow the same line of logic that I just did. Ivy, Soul Calibur series. Okay, this one I cannot defend, and I don't particularly want to. This costume, yes, it is stupid. It does not make any sense. I don't know why it exists. It makes no sense. They make no attempt to make any sort of logical reasoning for the costume. I don't understand. But, you know who else is in these series of games? Whatever the hell Voldo was supposed to be. Who is dressed in a similar manner to Ivy. He is overly sexualized for no apparent reason. They give no reason for him to be dressed this way either. So there is literally an example of that on both sides. You can probably tell where I'm going with this. But also, you know one thing Ivy has that Voldo doesn't? A voice. She can speak and interact with her environment. Voldo cannot. He is mute, he is blind. He is literally a sex object. But do I hear anyone complaining about Voldo? No. No, I do not. So either acknowledge your double standard, or complain about both characters being sexualized. You can't just complain about one, and then not acknowledge the other. And this video is now age restricted because I showed Ivy. Thank you, Ivy. Street Fighter series, Cammy. This is the exact same scenario as in a Return of the Jedi. The villain brainwashes women and turns them into what the game calls dolls, which are constructs created by M. Bison to fulfill his perverse desires, which explains the sexualized outfit of Cammy. So yes, Cammy is sexualized. That's the point. It's meant to make you hate the villain even more. Marvel Comics. There's quite a few examples here. Psylocke. There is a reason why superheroes wear tight-fitting clothing. To be agile. Spider-Man would be unable to swing across buildings with heavy armor. Ms. Marvel, Superman, etc. would be unable to fly with heavy armor. Yes, I know Batman wears heavy armor, but he's just a normal dude with a sore throat. I would like to see him try to do a backflip in that costume. But what do I know? I guess Olympic gymnasts dress the way they do in order to sexualize themselves. Also, the film X-Men Apocalypse was going to give Psylocke a more modest costume, but Olivia Munn specifically requested the comic costume because she was a fan of the character. So therefore, it isn't really oppressive if a woman really wanted to wear it. Besides, just complaining about Psylocke because of her outfit completely disregards all of her character and completely misses why she is my favourite superhero of all time. She is a telepathic ninja who can summon telekinetic energy blades with her mind. How is that not cool? Ms. Marvel. The classic one, not the new one. She can fly, she has super strength, she can shoot photon blasts from her hand, she's pretty much immune to bullets. I'm pretty sure she can wear whatever she wants without any negative side effects. But besides, this one was partly due to a history, because at the time, Carol Danvers got her powers from another superhero called Captain Marvel, the original version of that hero. And to make a distinction between Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel, they had to find some kind of distinction between their outfits, because if you look at the current Captain Marvel outfit, it's very, very similar to the original Marvel outfit. So they had to distinguish that these were two different characters and not just a slightly different version of that same character. So they incorporated the Marvel colors into a bodysuit design instead and gave that to Carol. It makes sense. It distinguished the characters. And there's been a lot of discussion and agreement lately that Carol Danvers has become less sexualized now that she's become Captain Marvel. While that may be arguable at best, that also disregards the fact that Carol Danvers is less of the powerhouse she used to be. Carol Danvers, as Ms. Marvel, led the Avengers. Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel caused a civil war and everyone hates her. Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel had flaws. She was an alcoholic and was often arrogant. Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel is just arrogant, but that isn't treated as a flaw. She-Hulk. During the greatest comic book series ever made, a sensational She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters used her sexuality as a joke. Yeah, this one might be quite tricky to explain, but imagine if Deadpool was a woman and he wasn't burnt, so basically just Gwenpool. They would use their sexuality as a joke in order to gain viewers. She-Hulk was an early version of Deadpool, just less crass. So that's basically what she did. She knew they would be smart and other various stuff along the same lines of her, so she might as well just run with it. So she had stupid eye candy as a joke in order to break taboos. Yes, it was over the top. Yes, it was sometimes unnecessary. But that was the joke. To see how much they could get away with. This comic was pretty much breaking every rule in Marvel Comics history, breaking the comics code of authority. They were pretty much just trying to intentionally push the line to see how much it would take to get themselves cancelled. It was glorious. And for all of you saying that She-Hulk doesn't look hulky enough, look me straight in the eye and tell me you would all prefer this over this. Final Fantasy IV. Rosa. Yes, the one and only character on this list that I would agree is needlessly sexualized and does not have any clear argument or basis for. But I think she makes up for that by being by far the most valuable character in this game by a clear margin. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Lately, Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider games has got praise for being more quote-unquote realistic and less, let's just say, less well-endowed than her classic counterpart. The classic Lara Croft was always given unfair slack for being just an overly sexualized character. That isn't the case at all. Yes, Lara Croft is sexualized in places, but think it through logically again. Lara Croft was pitched as a female version of Indiana Jones. Is Indiana Jones a sexualized character in his film? Yes. And most of the time she wears something appropriate for that destination. If she is in the Arctic, she will dress accordingly with long sleeves. If she is in a underground tomb that will heat up and have heaps of trapped air, she will wear something with short sleeves. The outfit she often wears. And for those complaining about her wetsuit in Underworld, it's an ocean near the equator. What else are you expecting her to wear? Lara Croft was strong, adept, and she didn't let any men boss her around. That's a feminist hero in my definition. Does it matter how she's dressed? I mean, it doesn't in this case either, because she's dressed appropriately for the situation. But yes, I will admit in her comic series there were a few times where the sex appeal was kind of over the top and unnecessary, but there were few and far between, and you could kind of still see the logic in those points. And what I would say to that is, if it was an Indiana Jones comic and he was put in the same situation, wearing the male equivalent of what Lara was, no one would be complaining. Doctor Who. Leela. Fun fact, Leela was actually introduced in the show to increase the male viewership of the audience, because at this point in the show, it was more popular with women and children. So you can't really make the argument that Doctor Who was viewed through a male lens and therefore part of the male gaze theory if the primary amount of viewers of the show were women. That would therefore be the female gaze, which apparently doesn't exist. Perry Brown. Introduced for the exact same reason as Leela. Plus, I love Nicola Bryant's answer to people alluding to her character being sexualized when she had to wear a bikini in Planet Fire. She just simply replied, "Well, I was going swimming." Which makes sense. It served a logical purpose in the story.